Want to get into a little bit of the dynamic, Patrick, right now to win the national championship in college football. I think when you look around the landscape, there's not a single team that is a complete football team that doesn't have some sort of deficiency. This is not LSU 2019, Alabama 2020, or a plethora of other teams that have been great throughout the years. I think every team you can point to somewhere along the line, there's a fallacy with them. But right now, for my money, Patrick, when I look around the college football landscape, I think there's only two bets to be made, and that's Ohio State and Michigan. And the reality of it is, these two teams, Patrick, when you think of the Buckeyes and you think of Michigan, you think of great offenses. The Wolverines, think about all the quarterbacks that people don't remember. Elvis Gerbach, Chad Henne, Tom Brady, of course, Drew Henson. These are all guys that played in the NFL, names that kind of get forgotten. Running backs, Tim Biakabatuka, Tyrone Wheatley. So many other guys have come through the system from the offensive side of the ball. But Michigan right now, Patrick, has the best defense in college football. It's not just from a scoring standpoint. In 5 games so far this year, they're giving up an average of 6. That's right, 6 points per game. That's how good this defense is. And it's not just in terms of points per game what they're giving up. And by the way, they've limited every opponent to single digits. It's been impressive what they've been able to do so far overall. But when you look beyond just those numbers, total defense in college football, currently Michigan ranked in the top 4. In scoring defense, I mentioned number 1, Ohio State number 2. Michigan's given up 30 points. Ohio State's given up 34 points so far in the season. Now, granted, the Buckeyes have played one less game than the Wolverines, so you have to take that into consideration. But when you look at some other statistics in terms of rushing defense, Michigan, number 13 overall, giving up just 3.1 yards per carry. I mean, this team has been stout in every way. Passing yards allowed, Michigan, number 12 in the country, giving up just a ridiculous 6.58 yards per attempt. They have been tremendous in terms of what they've been able to do. First downs allowed, defensively, Michigan, number 2 in the country. They've given up 23 first downs so far this year. Ohio State, number 5 in the country in terms of first downs allowed. The Ohio State, in terms of passing yards allowed, number 4 in the country. Look, Georgia, we saw them win a national championship 2 years ago on an elite defense. They got worked by Alabama in the SEC championship game, but they bounced back very nicely in Indianapolis in the national title game with that defense. When you look around right now, Washington, USC, Texas, elite offenses. But when you go up against elite defenses, even in this day and age, the elite defenses generally tend to prevail. And if you're looking at the futures market, Georgia's too short at 3-1, but the Wolverines at 3.5-1 are not going to be challenged. They're going to be favored in every single football game, including the Big Ten championship game, the rest of the way. A great opportunity for Michigan to win their first national title since 1997. The Buckeyes on the flip side will be a favorite in every game except the game in Ann Arbor. This is a team that's got elite defenders. They've got probably 10 starters on their team out of 22 that will be drafted. These two teams, and I haven't even talked about the offenses. JJ McCarthy's a guy who could be a potential first-round pick next year in the NFL draft. We know how good Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum are. That's a 1-2 combination that's outstanding. And when you look at Wills Peoples-Johnson, people forget how good of a defensive back he is. He is an elite player. We talk about Caleb King at Penn State, but he is right there among the best defensive backs with Kool-Aid McKinstry at Alabama and anyone else you want to put up there in college football. I think this is Jim Harbaugh's best chance to have the success that he didn't finish off in San Francisco by winning a Super Bowl, to win a national championship. So if you're going to bet somebody right now, the Wolverines at about 3.5-1 and the Buckeyes at 7.5-1, Patrick, are the only two plays I would make.
Yeah, it's a great take on Michigan, Amal, and you can find them right now in the market at 4-1 at DraftKings, so even a little juicier, and I don't think they're going to be stressed. Just 3 points you mentioned to East Carolina. They gave up 7 to UNLV. Bowling Green dropped 6 on them, and then Rutgers and Nebraska 7 apiece. So check out the schedule. They've got another month before it starts to tighten up. They're going to be at Minnesota. Okay, Minnesota's offense is terrible. They're going to host Indiana. They'll go to Michigan State. Michigan State is absolutely right now just spiraling down the drain. And then they get their week. Remember, they've got their week 9 bye for Michigan. Then they host Purdue, and then here it comes. You go at Penn State, you got Maryland, who's 5-0, and then you host Ohio State. So really, after that bye, once we get into November is when Michigan's season starts to tighten a little here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. But one thing, with all due apologies to Penn State and all the Penn State fans and backers, they're just not on the level of Michigan and Ohio State right now. You know, when you struggle, Michigan would never go into Evanston and be in a dogfight in the first half, down by 7 points at Welsh Ryan. Neither would Ohio State. And I think that's the problem. The lack of consistency from this offense. Their running game, even though they've got immense talent in that backfield, I just don't think it's been able to hit its stride. Aller was highly inconsistent at one point in that football game. He was 9 for 18. They've got to get better. I still think Michigan's a more complete football team. I don't think people have watched too many of the Wolverines games. First of all, they've played some just anemic opponents, and so you can say they're stat padding to a certain extent. But when you watch a game, Patrick, and even in garbage time, yeah, they gave up the score to Nebraska. They dominated the Huskers, and I know they don't have an elite offense by any stretch, but they thoroughly dominated this Nebraska offense. Ohio State has done the same thing. Yeah, they give up points to Sam Hartman. Remember, the Buckeyes, because of the Travion Henderson 62-yard touchdown run against Notre Dame, they were on the field for 11 consecutive minutes minus one offensive play. So it puts a lot of pressure on your defense. I'm telling you, we're so used to when you look at the game that it's been offense, offense, offense for both these teams. I think this year you're going to go back to some of the older games where it's going to be a defensive mentality. Both teams are going to look to minimize mistakes. And, Patrick, with that being said, the reason why I think these are two very good bets, one of these teams is going to win the Big Ten. Nobody from the Big Ten West is going to challenge Ohio State or Michigan. The second reason is I believe that there's a possibility once again this year that two teams from the Big Ten get into the college football playoff. If Ohio State and Michigan are 11-0 going into Ann Arbor and you have another close football game and with nobody else really kind of establishing themselves as just a dominant force, I think there's a great possibility that you could wind up with two teams from the Big Ten.
You're looking Michigan 4-1. You're looking Ohio State 7.5-1 championship odds. Quick question for you coming off the bye. Of course, the spirited and emotional win at Notre Dame South Bend. Here comes Maryland. Talia, Loxley, and that high-scoring offense. They haven't played anybody, Maryland, but the number's 20. Where do you stand on that game?
Yeah, this is, as Coach alluded to, probably looking to take it to points here. Maryland, especially now when they were in College Park, has competed against the Buckeyes. Even last year, remember, it was a 43-30 game. But when I look at this Ohio State team defensively, I think this is the best defense that Mike Loxley's team has faced in the Buckeyes. And that's going to be the real challenge. I'm not talking about in the season. I'm talking about anytime Maryland is faced off against Ohio State. So that's where the real challenge is for me from a Maryland standpoint. I think Harrison and Egbuka should have a monster day. Travion Henderson. Buckeyes should be healthy. You mentioned it. By early in the season in week 4 here. I don't think it's the best scenario, but you kind of make do with what the schedule is. So Ohio State in good position and a home game coming off of that great win against Notre Dame. But I'll tell you one thing, Maryland's got an opportunity to turn some heads. And guys, when you look around, I think there's a point of separation. You've got 1 and 2 Ohio State, Michigan, then Penn State on its own tier. And then Maryland, to me, I can make the argument right now, is as good as Wisconsin or anybody else in that conference. They've got a chance to potentially be the 4th best team in this league.
Okay, wonderful. Great stuff, Amal. There's some college football for you. Ohio State, Michigan play on them as far as the national championship says, Amal Shah.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.